Whether you like it or not, in today's video you're gonna get a tour of our Vermont farm, and it's sponsored by my friends at Bright Cellars.
Hi, I'm Morgan Gold, and this is Goldshaw Farm. A few years back, my wife and I left a life in Washington, D.C. and moved to an abandoned farm in a remote and rural part of Vermont. Despite having zero agricultural experience, we're just about to complete our 4th season of farming. Let me give you a tour to show you how things are going and what we've learned.
Now, in order to kick this tour off good and proper, I should probably start inside here. It's our Goose House, and it's the newest addition to our farm. Behind this door, I have a whole gaggle of geese who've been hanging out inside here for the last 24 hours. Come on, let's go. Good morning, my geesies. How's it going? Good to see ya. Even though it's only like 9 degrees Fahrenheit outside of this place, it feels like it's about 25 or 30 degrees inside this house. You see, it's kind of built like a greenhouse. I just moved these geese in here yesterday morning for the first time. As you guys might have seen in our last video, I was struggling to get them inside, but I finally figured out a way to corral them in here. I'm keeping them in lockdown for the next probably another 24 to 48 hours. I want them to identify this spot as home, and the only way to do that is to anchor them into this position. Eventually, they're also going to have a yard that they can go into where they can hang out during the winter months as well, but I need to get them anchored here first. As you can see here, they had food, which they've eaten, plus water. Well, it looks like they still have a little bit more food in that dish. The water has surprisingly frozen a little bit, but not a lot. I would have expected a lot more freezing given the outdoor temps. This is doing exactly what I hoped it would do. And I also just noticed this. We got an egg. I think this is from Ron Swanson, our duck who thinks she's a goose. She's the only duck I have living inside of here because she prefers to be with the geese because she's always been raised with geese. We're all about accepting our animals for who they are here on our farm. Oh no! I just put this egg in my pocket and I cracked it. You want it? Here. You can lick that snow. There really is nothing worse than starting your day off with a pocket omelet. Gotta get them some fresh water. So over here we have our watering station. Sometimes I use hoses, sometimes I use buckets. This waterer is a lifesaver. It's what's known as a frost-free hydrant, and it draws water up from below the frost line, and then when it's done being used, it drops the water back down. That way, even on the coldest days, I can get access to water for the animals. Plus, it makes for a good workout. Hang on, I'm coming with some fresh water, you guys. I like how they still follow me around. Release the Kraken! And while our farm is home to about 40 geese in the winter, we also have a flock of about 30 ducks to take care of. And while the geese just moved into their new hoop house structure, I've got the ducks living inside this duck house that I built about 2 years ago. I designed it with a lot of features specifically for ducks, and so far it's worked out really well, and we've done very well over the last couple of winters. If I find that my experience with the hoop house is super positive, I might end up moving them to a different type of structure. But for the time being, if it ain't broke, don't try to fix it. And so the ducks have been living inside of here. Both ducks and geese are very cold hardy animals, and that's part of why we keep them. We're here in northern Vermont, and it can be a pretty cold climate in the winter, and we have a very long extended winter. While I was thinking about animals that we wanted here on our farm, the cold hardiness of those animals was an important deciding factor. We also have a couple flocks of chickens here on our farm. We have our main egg-laying flock that's been living inside this brooder house for the last couple of months, but I'm getting ready to very soon move them in with the geese. Once the geese get settled, I will sneak them into that house in the middle of the night. I also want to build them a roost so that they have a good place to sleep. I think actually pairing the geese with the chickens will be a very complementary animal mixture. Because think about it, like, geese are very flat-billed animals that sort of stomp everything down, while chickens are very sharp and they're always scratching and mixing. I think that's gonna help the compost in there compost even better. All right, chickens, you get some spoiled bread today. I'm keeping the chickens locked up in this run just for a little portion of the morning because I don't want the ducks or the geese to get access to the bread. It's perfectly fine for your chickens to eat bread, but it's not good for your ducks to eat bread. While generally speaking, I enjoy hanging out and watching the chickens, the animal that likes watching the chickens the most here is Ginny Barn Cat. Come on, Ginny. She is fascinated with them. I don't think she'd ever attack them, but she's always very curious. Do you listen to that little motorboat? She has become the ultimate shoulder cat. As I've said before, this is horrible for my allergies, but great for my heart. Aww. Did you guys see that? Ginny climbed on the metal bar for this fence post here. And she was like one of those cats in like the hang in there posters. That was adorable. Oh my gosh, sweetie, I can't believe you did that. Uh-oh, it looks like during Ginny's activities there, Toby just stole a bagel. You're welcome to eat it, pal, if you want it. I don't think he wants it. He's always just very curious about food. Then he usually just kind of leaves it. And then he'd rather play with the barn cats. Oh, I think Ginny wants the bagel. So the dog and the cats on our farm, they all have jobs. You see, Toby Dog's job here on the farm is to guard all the animals and keep predators away. He's a special breed of dog known as a Maremma, and Maremmas have been bred for thousands of years to live with flocks and herds of animals and keep things like wolves away from those animals. And while we don't have wolves anymore here in northern Vermont, we do have coyotes, we have bobcats, we have mink. All of those things could easily put a hurting on our birds, but Toby Dog's presence scares those animals away. But in order for him to be as effective as possible, he needs to be outside 24/7. And for a dog like Toby though, that's a good deal. He is not an indoor dog at all. He gets anxious and nervous whenever I try to bring him indoors. He'd much rather be out here around his farm, wandering the land. And he has this very special, soft, double-coated fur that keeps him nice and warm. It's essentially weatherproof. It's very similar to like what huskies have as they run their dog sleds. And while sometimes people will give me flack for keeping Toby outside, I actually know that that's what he likes the best and what's actually in his best interest. And if you guys are wondering, he does have a house, which I'll make the next stop on the tour. So this is Toby's dog house. He gets to live in the lower level and the barn cats stay in the upper level. So Pablo Barn Cat is Toby's best friend. Toby's still kind of getting used to Ginny and Molly Barn Cat. And I built this area so that Toby could eat without getting harassed by the chickens especially. It's worked out pretty well so far. Although I do have to keep the barn cats away. Come on, Pablo. Away you go. Pablo, get out of there, man. Come on. You know you're not supposed to be in there. Come on. Now, one question people ask me a lot is if Toby Dog has a dog bed inside of there. And the truth of the matter is no. What I usually do for his bedding is I will actually use straw. I'll use liberal amounts of it because the straw acts as a nice insulator. Of course, it looks like one of the chickens decided to use it as a nesting box. Ginny, stop trying to eat Toby's food and hitting him in the face, huh? Ginny, you're getting awful bratty today. So the straw acts as a really nice insulator and keeps Toby warm and dry. And that's really what it comes down to, it all he really needs. Ginny keeps trying to eat Toby's food. If he had like a regular old dog bed, that would actually tend to get wet and then could really cause problems for Toby, even give him hypothermia. And so that's why people often think a dog bed's a nice thing for an outdoor dog, but it's actually a very harmful thing, and you're much better off using something like straw. Let's go feed these hungry barn cats. Oh, no problem. And this is the spot where I usually feed our barn cats. They have 3 separate dishes for eating. They also have this nice, warm, heated cat house that if they get really cold, they can use that. It's so cold this morning that the outside hydrant knobs just froze. I guess I'll have to go inside for their water. On the most extreme cold nights, like I'm talking double-digit negative temperatures, they will end up coming into the house and we'll usually put them in the basement. But for the most part, I found that Pablo likes to sleep on the house on the porch. Meanwhile, Molly Barn Cat likes to sleep on a little house that I've made for them inside the barn. And Ginny Barn Cat kind of goes wherever she wants. Sometimes she'll sleep in the barn, sometimes she'll snuggle up with Pablo, but all in all three cats seem very happy. Now, one spot that you're not gonna get a tour of on this farm tour is our house. My wife Allison is not a big fan of me shooting stuff inside the house. So you'll usually see me shooting stuff in the kitchen or the dining room or oftentimes in my office, but that's about all you'll ever see in our videos. It's because we kind of want to keep our home life private. You know, we made the choice to open up the farm to sharing it on YouTube and Facebook and TikTok, but some things you want to just kind of keep to yourself. But what I can say is it's a very nice and cozy home that we live in. And in fact, last night I had a great night thanks to our video sponsor, Bright Cellars. You see, my wife Allison, she works as a nurse practitioner, and last night she was working an overnight in the emergency room of the hospital that she works at. And so I just had a nice quiet night at home, and it was a great time to break out Bright Cellars. Bright Cellars is a monthly wine subscription founded by 2 MIT grads who wanted to help people discover wines that they love. All you have to do is take a less than 30-second quiz online, and the algorithm matches you with wines you're guaranteed to like based on your taste profile. You get the packages of wine delivered right to your doorstep, and each personalized wine comes with an educational card that provides serving and pairing tips. You know, for me personally, I'm kind of a wine dummy, and so ever since I started using Bright Cellars, I find that I'm becoming a little bit more cultured and educated when it comes to wine and wine consumption and the different tastes and the flavor profiles. And what I'm finding is like when you match certain wines with certain foods, like it just makes your whole mouth explode. It's kind of cool. And I've really learned all of that from Bright Cellars. You know, last night I cracked open a Spanish bottle of wine known as a Garnacha, and it was from Ocopio. I think I'm saying that right. You know, because they talk about it tasting like cherry and raspberry and cinnamon and vanilla. And you know, just sitting down by the fire and cracking open a good book and sitting with Lil Barn Cat as the fire roared and I sipped on that glass of wine, it was so soothing and so relaxing after a long day of working outside here around the farm. And what I really need to do is actually go on Bright Cellars tonight and rate it a 5-star wine so that in my next shipment from them, it gets even better and even more customized to my tastes. If you want to check out Bright Cellars, right now they're giving a special offer to Goldshaw Farm viewers where you can get 50% off your first 6-bottle box. All you have to do is follow the link down below and take the quiz to get started. You know, as the weather's getting colder and the evenings are getting longer, I think a Bright Cellars subscription is a nice way to responsibly enjoy some wine and kick back and relax. All right, now come with me. We've got more animal chores to do. My Lord, what are you doing in here, girl? Did you look at this? This is one of my weird chickens, or bantam chickens. For some reason, it snuck into this house last night and didn't go into its normal house. Why did you do that? Why didn't you go with your family? Yeah, this one, I think he's a rooster actually, based on the tail feathers and maybe some spurs that are forming. This was one of the little birds that we hatched out earlier this summer. He's a silky bantam satin cross, so it means that he's a much smaller type of chicken. Also got the fluffy feet, gigantic eyes, poofy hair. I've kind of been keeping these chickens more for fun than for farm, but I really enjoy having them around here. They are much smaller than a regular chicken, and so I keep them separate because of that reason. And particularly during breeding season, I try to keep them separated so that the larger roosters with the larger chickens don't try to actually mix in with these guys. Come on, little one, let's reunite you with the rest of your family. Good morning, weird chickens. Your prodigal son is home. They're also a lot less cold tolerant compared to our other chickens, and so they'll probably wait for the sun to get up a little higher today and things to warm up. All right, back to the Goose House we go. I owe them some more corn. I'm giving them a lot of corn right now because they're in their fattening diet mode, because some of them are about to be slaughtered and sold. But actually most of them are gonna stick around to next year so that they can be breeding for future generations. All right, I got fresh corn for you kiddos. Dig in. Now my next stop on the tour is gonna require more water. All aboard the Water Express! Woo-hoo! So yeah, we have 5 Scottish Highland cattle here on our farm. 4 cows or heifers, depending on how you want to look at a couple of them, as well as 1 steer. We just added them to the farm back in early October, and they're about to go into their winter quarters, but I've been trying to keep them out here on the pasture as long as possible. You know, the Scottish Highland breed of cattle is very cold hardy, and I kind of want to see how well they do just out here in the open like this. You know, they have trees for cover a little bit, so it's not like they're completely exposed. But so far, they've been doing great. At this point, my biggest hassle in the winter with the Scottish Highland cattle has been ensuring that they have enough fresh drinking water. So I've started using the buckets, much like I used to do with the ducks and geese before I had water lines. I'm bringing these buckets out here once or twice a day. I wouldn't want to do this all winter, but at this stage of the game, I really don't mind it. You know, some people will say that they use snow as water for their cattle, but I've heard mixed reviews on that. So I feel like it's worth the extra effort of coming out here and doing this. I mean, it takes probably an extra, I don't know, 15 minutes of my day to make sure I have happy cows. That to me is totally worth it. I think I'm really ticking off Audrey here because I keep dumping water as she's trying to get a drink. Sorry, girl, just give me another minute and I'll be all done. There we go. Now some of you might be wondering what I'm feeding them. One, I still give them their alfalfa treats that you can see right here. They like it as like a snack. Number 2, I've noticed that they continue to graze some of the grass stubble that we have around here. But then number 3, I've started to feed them hay, which they really seem to enjoy. This bale of hay I put out here about 3 days ago, and they're getting down to the dregs. Probably by tomorrow, I'll move them to a new paddock that's right over there, which what I want to keep doing is inching them closer and closer to the barn. And don't be afraid, I'll give you some more biscuits if you want. I just don't want to have to move them too far all at once. And like I said, so far they've seemed pretty content out here on the pasture. Hey Annabelle, would you like something? Oh, Annabelle gets some, but nope. Here's my buddy Kurt Cobain, our steer. He definitely likes to eat them right from my hand. Oh yeah, you're a good boy. You want another one? Okay, load up. These cows, when they got here to the farm, were kind of wild. They've settled down a lot, and I would have never expected them to ever get this comfortable with me. But so far, it's been pretty good. You know, ever since the cattle came here, I've kept them in this fenced-in 10-acre area that we have on our farm. This is the free-range area for the ducks and geese and chickens. It's also the location of our 600-tree permaculture orchard. It has this 5-foot-high fence, which is covered in 1x2 welded wire. And then there is like an electric wire that's going out around 5.5 feet. That helps keep the predators out, it keeps bears out. It also gives me a line of electricity that I can run to as I'm fencing in the cattle with their smaller paddock fences. You know, our farm is about 160 acres, and about 50 acres of that is pasture. And my plan is to fence in about another 30 acres of pasture next year, kind of that big open field that you see on the top of the hill there. Once that spot gets some permanent fencing in, I'll feel much more comfortable about putting the cattle up there to graze next year. And then in subsequent years, I'll probably fence in more pasture and keep expanding out the pasture and the fencing as my need for grazing land grows, as my herd of cattle grows. One of the things that I've been very focused on with building this farm is to not do it too quickly and not to try to expand too fast. While it's maybe going slower than some people would like, for me it feels just the right speed in terms of not making me overwhelmed, not going further than my abilities will allow me to go as a beginning farmer. And so I'm going to continue to work this one and be very thoughtful and methodical. Now, because this is a farm tour, folks are probably wondering about other parts of our farm. And well, it is pretty expansive, right? So as I look at the giant aerial view of the farm, we have a couple different types of forests that are on here. We have a mix of hardwoods that are sort of more on the top of the hill on the back side of our property. If you look at the south side of our farm, we also have a significant cedar swamp, as well as a lot of other softwood trees scattered around. One of the big focuses that I have for our farm over the next couple of years is creating greater tree diversity. You know, Vermont if you go back like say 150, 200 years, was like almost completely clear cut. A lot of the folks who were homesteaders and farmers and settlers at that time, they were very focused on raising a lot of sheep. And so they cleared so much land for grazing. And so a lot of the forest that you see around Vermont isn't old growth because it's really been growing back over that last maybe 100 years or so. And part of what's happened as it's grown back is that it hasn't grown back nearly as diverse as it should. And so we have certain trees, like especially poplar, that have started to overtake our forests. And what I'm trying to do is selectively harvest those and introduce a mix of other trees that have traditionally been around here, like oak and maple and chestnut and butternut. You know, it's kind of ironic that most people think about our farm, they think about the animals, but the thing that I'm probably most passionate about our farm are our trees. You see, we have this 600 tree permaculture orchard that we planted back in 2017. And when I say permaculture orchard, it's actually based on a concept by a guy by the name of Stefan Subkowiak. He's an orchardist up in Quebec. And his theory is that you should really make an orchard a mixture of different plants and trees. That way you're breaking up the pest cycles and you're creating more diversity within your growth. And that'll make your entire orchard more productive as well as hardy. So we've just completed our 4th year of growth here, and we're still not quite producing fruit and nuts. You know, we got some mulberries earlier this year, and I wouldn't be surprised if we get some chestnut burrs later this next year, but that's not what it's about in the short term. It's about the long term. The trees that we have here are black locust, chestnut, mulberry, apple, and then I've also scattered in a few walnut and a few butternut, and I continue to sprout more butternuts and more chestnuts and more oaks, and I'm starting to scatter those in. Some of the trees grow really well, some of them die off. I replace the ones that die off. I have a whole operation on this farm where I will sprout seedlings in buckets, and then I'll grow those seedlings for a year in little garden beds, and then I'll pull them out and then I'll plant them. I don't ever expect this to be an important part of the farm business, but I do expect it to be an important part of the farm's legacy and what we set up for future generations and for future people who might live around here or farm on here. And by the way, in case you guys are wondering, right over there is where our honeybees live. As far as other parts of the farm I can highlight for you, right behind me is our kitchen garden. This is where my wife Allison grows all of our vegetables for the summer and into the cold months as well. We had a super productive year in the garden, and we grew so much awesome food, and it was so great to just get all your produce right here from the farm. We were even getting kale as recently as about 2 weeks ago, but at this point it's come to a screeching halt and everything's done. Really, Allison's last active activity in the garden was in this bed right here. She actually planted a whole bunch of garlic, so that'll start popping up in the spring. Our barn, which is directly behind me, is probably worth a tour video all its own. I've done them in the past, but things have changed, and so I should probably do a new one maybe later this winter. What you see directly behind me is actually the gate that will be the entrance to the cattle area. I'll probably move them in there next week or so. They will stay in there. I will feed them bales of hay. I actually just got a new bale grazing feeder thing so that they don't make a mess like they are with their hay right now in the pasture. I also use the barn to keep like all of our animal feed in there down on that side, as well as our tractor is stored over there. It's a 3-story barn that's about 130 years old. I've been doing some work on it. It needs more work. One of my goals for next year is to probably try to continue to do more work patching it up and fixing it up. It's tough because it was a 3-story dairy barn that was built very well and very practical for that specific purpose, but it's a lot less useful for the types of farming that I do here. And so what I'm trying to do is find ways to adapt it to make it work for my purposes, but also recognize it's probably never going to be the ideal situation. Now, I know I said this last year, but my intention for next year is to knock this old shed down. It's just kind of fallen apart and it's not very useful. And in its place, what I want to put is a new sort of more modern post and beam barn, but have it be a barn that's built to also be a garage so that we can house our cars and we can house our tractor, as well as I can house all of my growing collection of tractor implements. I'm finding that having space for keeping that stuff out of the weather is important, and we just don't really have a good practical place to put it right now. The clearance of our barn is just much too low to get the tractor in there, and so that makes it hard to do things like store all of our implements. You know, the plan was to build it this past summer, but between the crazy prices of lumber in the spring as well as all the labor shortages that happened throughout this past year, it's just been very hard to figure out a way to get it done. I really do hope we can get something figured out for that, because having that building I think would make a lot of our farm life really easy, or I should say easier. And what I've been finding is the more and more we settle into our model of farming, the more and more I'm recognizing that it's becoming the time to build that infrastructure. I hope you guys have enjoyed this update and tour. If you really want to like kind of blow your mind and just see how far we've come, I'm gonna leave a link for this video over here, which was from, I think, like the summer of 2018. It's where I give a tour, and you can see just how radically different things are and how far we've come. It's been a long, slow process, but a wicked enjoyable ride.